Searching for the Kidnapped Bride. It is a love story written in English and translated into Arabic by Dr. A. Ahmed. Copyright. All rights are reserved. No part of this book may be reproduced, stored in a retrieval system, or transmitted in any form, or by any means without the prior written permission of the author, except by a reviewer who may quote brief passages in a review for a print in a newspaper, general magazine, or a school journal. All the characters in this book are fictitious, and any resemblance to actual person, living or dead, is purely coincidental. Chapter 15. The second invasion of the Muslim Mujahideen. Meanwhile, the friends Malwal and Olivia transformed the forest into the Garden of Eden, just as the first couple, Adam and Eve, could eat from every tree in the Garden of Paradise except for the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. So, beloved Olivia and her lover Malwal enjoyed every fruit of their friendship except the tasting of the apple tree. They expressed their love for each other in many ways except the forbidden way. They kissed, hugged, and fell asleep in the embrace of their naked bodies. For 6 months, they walked from the southeast to the southwest of Sudan. They moved from Equatoria province to Bahr al-Ghazal state. They passed through many villages and towns. They avoided large cities where government forces were camped. Wherever they went, they introduced themselves to people as husband and wife. They carried their firearms with them. A year after that time, when he left the United States of America, the feet of the sad groom finally reached his old village called Tawila. He did not find any remaining huts or people living in that abandoned village. Even the crawling and insectoid creatures seemed to have either perished with the villagers or migrated elsewhere. Marwal fell to his knees and wept bitterly for his family and childhood friends. He remembered his innocent days when he used to run like a young deer, chasing rabbits and catch birds. His memory takes him to his beloved friend and lost pride, Ayen. He misses her very much and longs to see her again. He does not know whether she is alive or dead. He answers this question by shedding hot tears. Olivia held him in her arms and let him cry from the terrible pain burning like hot acid inside his chest. No matter how much he cried that day, he could not relieve himself from the pain that filled his heart. His pain turned it into anger, his anger into madness, and madness into revenge. Deep in his heart, Malwal swore a solemn oath that he would not rest until he avenged the innocent drops of blood that had flowed from his parents, brothers, sisters, relatives, friends, and his lost Denka pride, Ayen. Olivia felt the same feeling of anger and revenge when she saw the skeletons of the both villagers and her boyfriend's tear. She pointed her gun at the sky and vowed revenge. Wherever you go, I will go with you, and whatever you decide to do, I will do too. Malwal turned his angry face towards her and spoke through closed teeth. I'm going to Western Sudan to search for those who kill my people and most likely stole our girls and livestock. I know how to get them. A thief will always remain a thief and will return to steal again. Somehow, the former rebel fighter Marwan knew that neither Northern government soldiers nor the Muslim Mujahideen nor even the southern rebels could destroy his village in such a horrific way. The few months he spent with the rebels and the fighting he had against the government army taught him what kind of evil those fighters did to their enemies. Only the Arab Muslim Janjaweed invaders kill children and the elderly and steal livestock and young women. Then they sold those girls into slavery in the north. The lovers, Malwal and Olivia, were unable to spend the night in the village. due to their grief. They resumed their journey and headed toward the western region of Sudan called Darfur. 3 weeks later, they arrived at a village on the border between the Bahr al-Ghazal province and the Darfur region. The residents of that village are Southerners who always face attacks from Arab Janjaweed militiamen. Malwan and Olivia made the village chief and expressed their willingness to join his warriors in their fight against the Muslim invaders. They lied to the villagers and presented themselves as husband and wife. The Denka chieftain became very happy to have these brave, young, highly trained former rebel fighters in the warfare. He gave them food to eat and a small hut to live in. After they had eaten, Malwan and Olivia went to sleep. The lovers woke up early the next morning and left the village. From a small hill, they watched the village. They did this routine every day until one day a group of Janjaweed militias came to attack the village. Unfortunately, when the raid occurred, Malwan and Olivia were still asleep inside their hut. Never before had the Muslim invaders attacked a Denka village at night. It seemed as if someone was spying on them and reporting Malwan and Olivia's activities. The first hut that was set on fire was the hut where the friends slept. Some Janjaweed surrounded the hut and waited for them to come out. The two friends must choose between being burned alive inside their hut or venturing out and being shot dead. They have little time to make the right decision. In a few minutes, the small hut turned into a burning furnace. Their military training as rebels helped them choose the least risk. Malwan asked Olivia to cover for him as he went out. It was a narrow escape for him. His escape attracted the attention of the Janjaweed. They focused their efforts on shooting him. Malwan made himself visible to them so that Olivia could escape as well. Her escape is less dangerous than her boyfriend's escape. She ran around the hut and into the bush. Several bullets were fired at her, but none of them hit her. As soon as she reached a safe place, she returned enemy fire. At the same time, Malwan began shooting at the Janjaweed. Not since the Janjaweed leader Hajrodwan began raiding Denka villages has he faced such resistance as today. For 20 years, he and his men attacked villages, and every year they took young women and cattle and returned to their city with these spoils. He always sells captive young Christian women to tribal leaders and other farmers as slaves and servants. Although he became a very rich man, the evil Islamic war habit of raiding and stealing remained in his blood. He enjoys it as a hunter enjoys his game. Every year, Hajrodwan comes with his highly trained Mujahideen fighters. However, last year was a very bad year for him because he returned to his city empty-handed. The dangerous highway robber, the Hambati man with Mihera bin Abud, took the Denka girls, cattle, and horses from them, killed 10 of his men, and made the rest of them return on foot. Nothing saddened Hajrodwan's heart more than the loss of the beautiful captive Denka girl, Ayen, whom he wanted to keep for himself as a sex slave in his palace-like home in Al-Fashir city. He would pay half his fortune to get that beautiful and sexy African girl back. He looked for her everywhere, but did not find her. He did not know where the dangerous Hambati man with Mihera had taken her or to whom he had sold her as a sex slave. So this year, Hajrodwan returned to the south of Sudan to find a beautiful girl like Ayen. To achieve his goal, he hired a young Denka boy to spy on villages for him. This same spy is the informant who directed Hajrodwan and his terrorist Muslim men the previous year to the village of Ain, Tawila. This year, the spy saw Olivia and reported her to Hajrudwan. According to the report, she is more beautiful and larger in body than Ain. She possesses all the sexy physical qualities any African young woman should have to ignite an unquenchable fire of lust in a man's heart. She has highly raised breasts like spears, a big ass, a very beautiful eyes. Her hair is curly and long like a horse's tail. The only flaw in Olivia, which Hajrudwan does not like, is that she lives with another man, and this reveals to him that she is not a virgin girl like Ain. For an Arab man like him, virginity is more precious than silver and gold. He remembered how he deflowered Ain and raped her and stolen her virginity while he's bringing her from her village, South Sudan. The description of Olivia's beauty and sexy body made Hajrudwan attack that village. He was determined in his heart to kill her uncircumcised southern infidel Christian husband and capture her alive, whatever the cost. At this crossroads, Hajrudwan remembered the story of the famous Muslim Mujahideen commander Khalid ibn al-Walid, who heard about another Muslim leader who had the most beautiful Arab woman ever. The beautiful wife was called Layla bint al-Munhal, and her husband was known as Malik ibn Nuwaira. Khalid was sent by Caliph Abu Bakr al-Siddiq to kill some Muslims who refused to recognize his caliphate after the death of the Prophet Muhammad. Many of them became apostates because they were forced by the sword to become Muslims. When Khalid's first forces reached the tents of the apostates, their leaders came out and declared their allegiance to the Prophet Muhammad and their continued following of Islam. They told Khalid that they had finished praying and that the pollution water was still on their bodies. Khalid has been in a dilemma for some time. If he leaves them, he will disobey the orders of Caliph Abu Bakr and will not get a beautiful and sexy wife as a prisoner of war and a sexual slave. If he kills them, he may be accused of killing Muslims and enter hell. However, Khalid concludes that one beautiful woman with a hand reach is better than 72 beautiful virgins in heaven, or one bird in the hand is better than 100 birds in the sky. So the lustful commander Khalid slaughtered the innocent Muslim apostates, took their leader's beautiful wife, and slept with her on the same night. He spilled her husband's blood. Therefore, Hajrudwan remembered the story of Khalid and ordered his men to kill the Denka man and bring his beautiful and sexy woman to be a sexy slave with whom he could have sex without having to divorce one of his 4 Muslim wives and marry her, because she would become the queen of his right-hand possession, and he would be permitted to have sex with her without an Islamic marriage. Chapter 16. Victory over the Janjaweed. The fighting between the Mujahideen Muslim invaders of Hajrudwan and the two friends Malwal and Olivia continued throughout the night. By dawn, the Janjaweed leader had lost half of his 50 men. The leader of the Arab Janjaweed understood that if he continued fighting against the infidel Christians, he might lose all the Muslim Mujahideen who came with him to invade the Denka villages, and he might lose his life as well. So he decided to withdraw to his temporary camp, which was located a 3 hours horse ride away. For a safe escape, he ordered 15 of his men to continue shooting at the infidel Christian and 10 men to follow behind his horse. His plan worked perfectly, and he made it across safely and escaped alive. Olivia understood the plan and wanted to inform Malwal. She stopped shooting and started crawling on her knees towards her boyfriend. Her lover concluded that his beloved had been shot, so he stopped shooting and began rushing to save her. During this brief ceasefire, the other 15 Muslim men jumped on their horses and fled as well. "They are running away like cowards," cried Olivia when she saw the Arab knights fleeing the battlefield. So Malwar ran to a nearby horse, jumped on its back, and chased the fleeing Janjaweed. Olivia also mounted another horse and followed behind the cowardly fleeing Arabs. While the Janjaweed were fleeing the Denka village, Malwal managed to kill 3 of them. Olivia shot down 2 more. One of them fell to the ground when Olivia shot his horse. She's about to kill him if her lover Malwal does not stop her. "Don't kill him, sweetie, because we need him alive to guide us to where the others are," Malwal shouted. The Janjaweed man dropped his gun and surrendered himself to the 2 armed friends. When they returned him to the village, the leader decided to kill him, but the 2 lovers asked him to keep him alive because they needed him to be a guide to the other cowards who fled the battlefield. It is a tradition in the South Sudan that when a Janjaweed government soldier or a Muslim mujahid is captured, he is killed in a very painful way. He will be beaten and skinned while he is still alive. After this cruel death, his skin would be used as an umbrella to protect the Denka Sultan from the sun's rays. The southern chieftain wants to revive this custom if the 2 friends do not beg him not to kill him because they want him to lead them to the city where Malwal's fairest bride, Ayan, was taken. The American man, Malwal, told the villagers that he had 2 wives. The Denka Sultan himself had 22 wives at the same time. Although they are Christians, African men believe in polygamy. The number of wives depends on the person's wealth and physical and sexual ability. The Denka chieftain became very pleased with Malwan and Olivia's bravery and so agreed to their request. Before he changed his mind, the 2 friends decided to resume their journey to the western region of northern Sudan, where the Janjaweed live, the majority of whom are from the Miseria and Rezegat tribes. The 2 lovers took enough food, water, and ammunition and rode 3 horses. The captive man is chained and mounted on one of the horses and then forced to show the way. Before they left the village, they were able to find out what happened to the missing bride, Ayen, and the other Denka girls. The captive man confessed that their leader launches annual invasions and regularly raids Denka villages, killing men, women, and children, and keeping beautiful virgin girls. He then sold those beautiful captive girls as slaves to the residents of the Darfur and Kordofan regions. The 2 friends also learned from him what happened to the girl Ayen and the other Denka girl. He told them about their meeting with the brave Hambati man Wadmihera bin Abud. The man is one of those who survived the brutal assault inflicted on Hajrudwan's men by the dangerous Hambati robber. But he said he did not know what happened to the kidnapped bride Ayen and the rest of the other southern girls after Wadmihera bin Abud forces took them from them. Then he warned Malwal Olivia about the danger of that Hambati man. The captured man said, even the devil is afraid to meet the dangerous bandit and his evil men. The fear in his eyes revealed to the 2 lovers just how dangerous the Hambati man really was. He can shoot and kill a flying fly a mile away on the sky. He never misses his target. If you want to get to Al-Fashir city alive, you would have better avoid that dangerous man. We should follow the bumpy road and avoid the highway. The man continued. What Mihera bin Abud attacks convoys and Janjaweed groups who are walking on the main highway. Malwal said through clenched teeth, we are not going to the north to see the sights of Al-Fashir city, but we are looking for that evil Arab man who took our kidnapped Denka girls and our livestock from your cowardly master, Haji Rudwan. If you show us where to find him, I will show you where to find him. But please, don't engage me in combat. I have no weapon and I am chained. The man extended his bound hands. You are a cowardly man, Olivia shouted angrily. You can kill all people and children and rape young women, but you cannot fight a bandit like what Mihera. If that evil thief man shoot us, you'll be his first victim. I am not a cowardly man. Something fierce and broad shone in the eyes of the captive Arab man. I'm known among my Muslim people as Hassan al-Batal with the Arab, the hero of the Arabs. But circumstances made me scolded by the Jamal, or the mother of a camel like you. Jamal is an insult to woman and means a woman who has a busi. Jamal means the camel that the Arab man rides in the desert. But here, the word is used to refer to Olivia's private parts. In the hadith, the Prophet Muhammad said, a woman is like a donkey, a horse, and a camel because all of them are mounted. This means that God created them for men to ride on them. They are supposed to be climbed on and fucked by their male counterparts. In street Arabic language, a woman's pussy is called jamal. It is ironic that in English, a woman's genital organs are called a pussy or a cat, and in Arabic, a woman's pussy is called a camel. These obscene and indecent words were said by the captive Arab Janjaweed man to the trigger Abigail Olivia, and so they promoted her to assault him and spit on his despicable face. She's about to kill him if her lover doesn't stop her. Calm down, my dear, Malwal said, holding his angry girlfriend Olivia by the waist. We need him alive to guide us to other Muslim invaders. Chapter 17. The trial of the adulterous Imam regarding his pregnant slave girl. At the time, Maulana Abdul Razik, the Imam of the biggest mosque, was persecuted for possessing a slave girl and impregnated her without marrying her. The Sudanese judicial system was in chaos. After Sudan's independence in 1956 from the British Empire, the judicial system followed a mixture of civil, criminal, and religious rulings. Criminal and civil courts used British law and some Sudanese customs and tradition to adjudicate their cases. The civil court handles minor cases such as a dispute between two neighbors, gossip, slander, and the like. This court may not issue a ruling exceeding 6 months. The Sharia court differs from the other two courts in that its rulings are believed to be divine, and therefore sent down from heaven through the prophets and messengers of God. In the time of the British colonists, the Sharia court could handle small cases such as family matters like marriage, divorce, inheritance, or a child custody. A few decades after the British left Sudan, the Sharia court began to deal with serious cases such as murder, armed robbery, adultery, apostasy, treason, and so on. Its punishment are the amputation of hands and feet in the case of theft, flogging in the case of adultery and drinking alcohol, stoning to death in the case of fornication for married couples who cheat on their husbands and wives, beheading in the case of murder and apostasy, and throwing sodomites and lesbians from high mountains or a tall building. In the case of Imam Maulana Abdul Razik, he will be stoned to death if the Sharia court convicts him of adultery because he had other wives while committing fornication with his slave girl class. Proving adultery in Islamic law is the most difficult religious crime a court judge can ever prove. In all cases, the court accepts the testimony of 2 men or 4 women. According to the Quran, the testimony of 1 man is equivalent to the testimony of 2 women, because women in Islam are believed to be deficient in religion and reason. The charge of adultery can only be proven if 4 adult Muslim men or 8 adult Muslim women saw the adulterer and the adulteress engage in the very act of fornication and brought a thread and passed it between their bodies. If the thread cannot pass through the body of the adulteress and the fornicator, this proves that the al-mukhal thread, that means the man's penis or a dick, is inside al-murwad hole or the woman's vagina or a pussy. The number of witnesses to adultery doubled in the case of Aisha, the beloved child bride of the Prophet Muhammad, and the handsome Muslim man Safwan ibn al-Mu'attal. One day, Aisha, when she was 14 years old, accused of committing adultery with Safwan. While the Prophet was confused about whether to divorce his beloved wife or keep her, a verse came down from heaven exonerating Aisha from adultery with Safwan. The men and women who accused her were flogged with 80 lashes, and from that day onwards, the number of witnesses for adultery increased to 4 men or 8 women. The threat method was later introduced based on the decision of the second Caliph Umar ibn al-Khattab. Naturally, this impossible to prove method became a problem for Muslim judges and scholars throughout the long history of Islam until the great Sudanese Muslim scholar of the 21st century, Dr. Hassan al-Turabi, came along. Al-Turabi, as a lawyer, was faced with a serious case in which a group of wealthy and well-known men in the city of Khartoum were caught one day in a private garden dancing with beautiful young women who were neither their wives nor their sisters or daughters. The girls were almost naked, wearing only underwear such as bikinis or ampras, and the men were also naked, wearing their underwear like playboys. In this case, according to Islamic law, there is no way to prove that those sexy young chicks had have committed adultery with those guys. The eminent scholar Sheikh Al-Turabi pondered this serious issue for many days, and finally he came up with a new Islamic law. He called it attempting adultery, which means a man is trying to commit adultery with a woman. According to this new law, any man caught by the police while standing, walking, talking, sitting, or traveling with a woman who is not his immediate relative, such as a wife, sister, or a daughter, should be guilty of violating this law. The marriage man shall be flogging 100 lashes if the offender is unmarried, and stoning to death if he is a man married to another wife or a woman married to another husband. But in the case of the adulterous imam, the Sharia court does not need to apply the territor- territorial law of Turabian law or use the threat method because the blessed Imam Abdul Razik Al-Mahdi himself admitted before 6 male witnesses that he impregnated the Denka girl Ikhlas without marrying her. He admitted that he committed his sexual crime with his slave girl if the case was proven to be crime of adultery. On the day of the trial, the 5 judges who had come to try the sex case arrived with a predetermined ruling. They want to hear the adulterous Imam confirm the accusation and then hit him with the judgment of Allah. When the accused Imam Abdul Razik appeared before them, none of the 5 judges saw any tension or fear on his face. His eyes revealed that he was enjoying a good night's sleep and never worried about the trial. One of the judges shouted, Maulana Sheikh Abdul Razik Al-Mahdi, pointing his finger at the suspect like a gun. Have you committed adultery with a woman who is not your legal wife? The judge expected Maulana to admit his guilt so that he could immediately strike him with a sentence of stoning. The honorable Imam was silent for a while before clearing his throat and answering the question with complete confidence. God Almighty says in his book, the Holy Quran, in Surah An-Nisa 4, verse 3, and if you fear that you will not be able to do justice to the orphans, then marry whoever pleases you of the woman, 2, 3, or 4 wives. And if you fear that you will not be just, then 1 wife or what your right hand possesses of female slaves. Your Honor, the judge of the Sharia of Allah, before I answer your question, can you explain to the court what you understand by the meaning of this noble verse? The judge adjusted his glasses before answering, giving him time to glance at his notebook. This noble verse gives a Muslim man the right to marry 4 women at the same time. However, I understood that you already had 4 wives under your belt. The woman who bore you a daughter is not your wife. Our Lord Maulana rolled his eyes and shook his head. Blessed judge, you did not fully explain the verse I read to you. You divided it in half and explained to the court only the first half. What do you understand by what your right hand possesses? The judge shrugged his shoulder and replied, Jawari, or female slaves. What about the female slaves? Aren't they the Jawari? Maulana is speaking faster now. Yes, they are. Then the Imam's voice rose. Isn't this verse permissible for us to have intercourse with them without marrying them? Before you answer my question, I would like to remind you that there is no verse in our Holy Quran or a hadith of our infallible Prophet Muhammad, may God bless him and grant him peace, that abrogates the verse I refer to. The judge put his fingers on his neck and his face turned red. Yes, the verse gives a Muslim man the right to sleep with his female slaves without a marriage contract. But there are no slaves or a Jawari woman today. I did not ask you to tell me more than the meaning of the verse. Maulana's face changes color and sweat is on his forehead. Now, other voices in the courtroom are complaining. Some of the men leaning their heads close together, alternatively moving and shaking their heads while also discussing the conclusion. The judge frowned and continued. But do you go and arrest any beautiful woman on the street and sleep with her? And when the morality police of Allah arrest you, come here and tell the Sharia court that she is your slave or a Jariya? Maulana ran his sleeve over his wet face. According to Islam, how can a Muslim man on a slave girl. If a Muslim army invades a non-Muslim country of infidels to spread the light of Islam and defeats their soldiers, they will have the right to own their woman as right-hand possession or as slave girls or a jawari. Judge sniffed. Any good Muslim knows this answer. The murmurs rose in the court, building a dull roar. Another judge shouted impatiently, "Instead of wasting the time of the Sharia court, let Imam Abdurrazik al-Mahdi prove to the judges that he led a Muslim army, fought the infidels, defeated them, captured their women as slaves. Slave was one of them, impregnated her, and fathered a child by her. Did you get one of the Jawari to make her pregnant and she gave birth to your child? Only then can we talk about slave girls." The second judge sat down, pursued his lips in justifiable indignation, and shouts of approval exploded in the warm courtroom. Maulana raised his hand for silence, secretly enjoying the drama of the moment. From this, I understood that the blessed judge believes that a slave girl or a jariyah is the only woman who God possessed through the fight of jihad for the sake of God against the infidels, which is an obligatory requirement and a duty for all Muslim men. "Yes," cried the impatient judge himself. "If a man has sexual intercourse with a slave girl who was given to him as a gift, or a servant whom he bought with his money from the slave market, what do you call that? Adultery?" Maulana now speaks at the top of his voice, gesturing with one hand for effect. "Yes, I call it adultery, and it is a forbidden act," shouted the judge as he hit the table with his fist in anger. The adulterous imam stood on his feet, waiting in silence. A third judge said, "Otherwise, you have to convince the court that it was you who went to jihadist war to spread Islam among the infidel Christians, or a Jewish, or the idolatrous Hindus, or a Buddhist, and took possession of their Jawari woman after defeating non-Muslim people." Lord Maulana was just waiting for this moment. He scratched behind his ear and looked at the audience in the room. "What do you say about Maria the Coptic Christian girl who was given as a gift by the Muqawqas, king of Egypt, as a servant or slave girl to the Prophet Muhammad? May God bless him and grant him peace." The 5 Islamic judges finally faced a case they could not argue with. If they say that only the Prophet Muhammad had the right to sleep with a slave girl given to him as a gift, then Maulana can tell them why the Messenger of Allah said that every Muslim should follow his example. There is a lot of scrubbing of feet, shuffling of papers, and murmurs of voices. The 5 Sharia judges look at each other in horror. When Maulana realized that none of the court judges wanted to respond to his challenge, he continued his speech. "Let us review the entire story of the Coptic Christian slave girl Maria. The Prophet's biography says that the infallible Messenger of Allah slept with her without marrying her because she was his slave. When his wife Hafsa bint Umar ibn al-Khattab saw our honorable Prophet having sex with an Egyptian Christian slave girl, she said to him, 'Are you doing this in my night and in my bed, O Messenger of God?' Of course, at first, the Prophet felt very sorry for what he had done and asked Hafsa to keep the matter secret. She should not have told anyone, especially his beloved wife Aisha bint Abu Bakr as-Siddiq. Moreover, he promised her that he would never touch his slave girl Maria, the Copt, again. What happened after that? Imam Maulana stopped and stared into the eyes of his accusers who wanted to condemn him for committing adultery with his southern Christian maid who was gifted to him as a slave girl. He pointed his finger at each of them and said, "Can any of the blessed judges of the Sharia of Allah inform the court about the Quranic verse that God revealed to the Holy Prophet in this incident?" God blamed the Holy Prophet because he did not follow what is written in the Noble Quran, said one of the 5 judges who had never spoken before and was very interested in the topic of discussion. Maulana waited, still watching the faces of the other 4 judges. "O Prophet, why do you prohibit what God has made lawful for you, seeking the pleasure of your wives? And God is forgiving and merciful." Surah Al-Tahrim 66, verse 1. This is how the 5th judge, who opened his mouth for the first time, read from the Holy Quran. "May God bless you, our honorable judge," said Maulana Abdul Razik, titling his head to the 5th judge, who recited the above holy verse. This verse and other verses give every Muslim man the right to own slave girls, have sex with them, and conceive them with children without the obligation of Islamic marriage. So why was I summoned before the Sharia court when I did not commit any crime but did what our honorable Prophet Muhammad did? There was complete silence in the courtroom except for a few clearings of throats. The room became completely silent as a funeral home. Then the chief judge broke the silence and said, "But slavery is illegal in Sudan." Maulana raised his handcuffed hands and said, "Who made this illegal? The British colonists or the Book of God, the Holy Quran?" The 5 judges found themselves in a dilemma again. If they responded and said the British colonists, they would be violating the Holy Quran and the Noble Prophet's Sunnah, which are religious beliefs that are obligatory for every Muslim man and Muslim woman in every time and place. On the other hand, if they say the Holy Quran, they must prove that the verse to which the accused Imam Abdul Razik referred was abrogated by another verse from the Holy Quran or an authentic hadith of the Prophet. In any case, the 5 Sharia court judges closed their mouths and waited, as before, for the highly religiously educated Imam at Al-Azhar Sharif University, Maulana Abdul Razik, to answer his running question. "Of course, you guys cannot answer my question because you people fear man more than you fear Allah. I know that the judicial system in Sudan still relies on British law, which is a secular law created by man and not revealed by God from the 7 heavens to his infallible Prophet Muhammad. May God bless him and grant him peace. Why do I refuse to follow the book of God Almighty and the Sunnah of our infallible Prophet Muhammad? May God bless him and grant him peace. There are no verses in the Holy Quran or sacred hadiths of the Prophet that state that slavery is illegal. If any of you can point to a noble verse or there are no verses in the Holy Quran nor sacred hadiths of the Prophet Muhammad that state that slavery is illegal. If any of you can point to a noble verse or a blessed hadith that forbids slavery today, then I am ready to be condemned for owning a slave girl, a jariyah, or a right-hand possess, having intercourse with her, and charging and fathering an illegitimate child in an illegal way or a haram way. Therefore, I must be stoned to death as adulterer. The noises in the courtroom started again, but the chief judge shouted, based on the arguments of the blessed Imam Maulana Abdul Al-Bahri, the body of this Sharia court in the city of Al-Fashir does not find him guilty of any crime that contradicts the book of God, the noble Quran, or the Sunnah of our infallible Prophet Muhammad. May God bless him and grant him peace. Accordingly, this court rejects the criminal case filed by the lawyer, Mr. Adali Muhammad Taha, against the Imam falsely and slanderously accused of adultery, and allows Maulana Abdul Razik to continue his legally permissible sexual relationship with his Southern Christian Jariya Gail Ikhlas. Chapter 18. The Shamashas uprising in the city of Al-Fashir. Public reaction to the Sharia court ruling was one of the strongest protests. In particular, there was a violent reaction by those called Shamashas in Sudan against the outcome of the Islamic court trial. Before we mention what they did after the unfair trial, we must clarify more about who the Shamashas are. They are not from one of the African or Arab tribes, nor are they a small segment of society, as they constitute more than 80% of the population of Sudan. The word Shamashas means the sun people. Therefore, the correct translation of the word is people of the sun. They were given this name because they spent most of their time working under the scorching rays of the African sun. Shamashas are porters who lift heavy weights, vegetable sellers, and shoe polishers, boaters, itinerants, beggars, prostitutes, night watchmen. In short, they are blue-collar workers. However, due to the poor economic conditions in Sudan, the list may include school teachers, factory workers, students, government employees, journalists, and small shop owners. It is common in Sudan to find someone who works as a teacher by day and a taxi driver by night. Recently, university professors and students have been added to the list of Shamashas of low-income groups or below the poverty line due to their low salaries. The salaries of a professor at the University of Khartoum in Sudan is $30, while the journalist gets $10 per month. These are the people who protested the Sharia court's decision that day. They interpreted the decision as an open license to enslave and abuse African women by Arab men. Many of the tribes living in the western region in the province of Darfur, Kordofan, and Nuba Mountains, where the trial took place, are Africans, the indigenous inhabitants of Sudan, before the Arabs entered the country through the Islamic invasions. Despite this, the Khartoum government arbitrarily classifies them as Arabs. As for the remaining tribes, such as the Rizegat, Miseria, and Bagara, they are called the Jalaba, and they claim to be Arabs even though their features are African. They are named Jalaba by Africans because they put on something like julbab of the Arabs. Although slavery is abolished in Sudan, it disguises itself in different forms. If slavery is openly tolerated, what can stop the Jalaba from enslaving and raping African women from Darfur, the Nuba Mountains, and South Sudan? The recent events in the western region of Sudan were revealed to the international media through the United Nations. As the Khartoum government trained the Arab tribes of Miseria and Rizegat and provided them with lethal firearms to commit genocide crimes against poor African tribes in the Darfur region, such as the Masalit, Fur, and Zakawa. They are known today as the Rapid Support Forces and were previously known as the Janjaweed, meaning warriors on horses or devils on horses. They are organized and well-trained Arab militias whose tribes live in Darfur. The Islamic government of Khartoum organized, trained, and provided the Janjaweed with weapons, horses, and camels for the purpose of Islamizing and Arabizing the African tribes. Today, many Janjaweed have been brought to Khartoum and other big cities in northern, eastern, and central Sudan, and their name has been changed to Rapid Support Forces. But changing the snake's shirt will not make it no longer dangerous and venomous. They are now waging a fierce war against the Sudanese army in Khartoum, and they are plundering, raping, and enslaving women, and possessing the homes of the citizens of the triangular Sudanese capital city. According to a Human Rights Watch report dated April 2nd, 2004, the National Islamic Front government in Khartoum was accused of recruiting and arming more than 20,000 Islamist militiamen called Janjaweed, or horse-riding warriors, to carry out attacks on African civilians from Western Sudan. Their victims are mainly African tribes of the Fur, Masalit, and Zakawa ethnic groups, although also Muslims are of African origin and constitute the majority of the settled population of the region. It is surprising that the Khartoum government believes that Sudan is an Arab country, while more than 70% of Sudanese population are Africans. Sudan joined the Arab League in the middle of the 20th century, even though it is a black African country, and its request to join was rejected twice by Arab countries such as Lebanon, Libya, and Iraq. However, the terrorist soldiers supported by the Islamic Front, who came to power through a military coup in 1989, repeat this false claim and mislead the Sudanese that they are Arabs and Sudan belongs to the Arab nations. Some northern Nubian tribes, such as the Ja'aliya and the Shagiya, believe that they are Arabs and were descendants of Al-Abbas, the uncle of the Prophet Muhammad. The Khartoum government's website contradicts its own belief in what it boasts online about the population of Sudan. According to the official report, the population of Sudan consists at 52% blacks, Africans, 39% Arabs, 6% Bija from the eastern tribe of the so-called Fuzzy-Wuzzy people, 2% foreigners, possibly Falata or Nigerians, and another 1%, possibly those who were considered inferior humans or subhumans, such as Baramilu. In later chapters, we will mention who Baramilu is. In order to prove to the world that Sudan is an Arab country, every African tribe must convert to Islam and become Arab. Until then, the Janjaweed will continue their ethnic cleansing and genocide in the western region of Sudan. Perhaps the other Sudanese Jalaba tribes, which are called authentically Arabic, such as the Shukriya, the Batahin, the Kawahla, and the Rashaida, may also take up arms against the African Bija tribes in the eastern regions soon and wage a relentless war to Arabize them. In any case, there is no peaceful demonstration in Sudan. When the workers, students, and employees, who are called Shamashas, join the strike along with the rest of the large groups of Shamashas, there will be great destruction, casualties, looting, pillaging, and rape. but their demonstration will result in a major revolution, such as the October Revolution of the April or the April Uprising. It has happened 3 times in the modern history of Sudan that the Shamash took to the streets and overthrew 3 bad governments: the Abud government in 1964, the Nimeri government in 1983, and the Omar al-Bashir government in 2019. Chapter 19: Meeting with Highway Robbers. Meanwhile, the friends Malwal, Olivia, and their captive Arab guide arrive at the outskirts of Al-Fashir city after 5 days of continuous travel on their horses. According to the restrained guide, the dangerous Hambati man with Mihera bin Abud and his bandit men might attack them at any moment before they entered the city. The 2 friends decided to separate so that the armed Hambata would not attack them at the same time. Through the guide's words, they understood that Wad Mihera was a professional killer and a hero criminal. They were therefore unlikely to defeat him in an open combat in the semi-desert wilderness. They planned to ambush the dangerous man and his gang of bandits and force them to surrender. The beautiful and sexy southern Olivia Gale will be a trap to attract the attention of Wad Mihera. She will continue riding her horse with the captive-bound Arab man, while Malwal must follow them with his horse from behind from a distance. When Wad Mihera's gang attacks Olivia and the Arab man, Malwal surprises them with his firearm and orders them to surrender. The 2 friends decided to take such a risk because they wanted the Hambati man with Mihera bin Abud to be captive alive so that he could show them where he took the kidnapped bride, Ayn, and the other captive Denka girls. The captive Arab man does not like the plan because he is afraid of the unbeatable Sudanese hero Wad Mihera. He knows he will be killed by the dreadful Hambati man before he captures Olivia. All the tribes of Darfur, Kordofan, and the Nuba Mountains consider him to be like the genius Muslim leader Khalid ibn Walid, the only Saifullah who was considered the only sword of Allah who was not defeated in any Islamic battle. He fought with the Muslim Mujahideen against the Persian and Byzantine armies as if he were Alexander the Great. However, the 2 friends imposed their plan on the Janjaweed prisoner and made him ride his horse while handicapped and walking in front of Olivia's horse. Wad Mihera can smell his prey from a mile away, like a hyena or a wanderer in the wilderness who saw a stray gazelle. For a distance, he saw the beautiful Olivia and the Arab man with her. He concludes that she is a Northern slave who was stolen from a Denka village. He waited patiently until his prey got close enough to attack. It was hot and pride when Olivia saw 3 Arab men on camelbacks heading toward them at a full speed. She had never seen a real camel before. The 3 men appeared to her as if they were riding moving mountains. She wondered if she could ever agree to sit on such a huge beast one day. Olivia was unable to guess which of the 3 was Wad Mihera because all of their faces were completely veiled and they wore turbans on their heads that the Arab Janjaweed call kadamol. Their guns are in their hands, pointed at them. Olivia's heart nearly jumped out of her mouth when she heard the gunshot. Before she could overcome her terror, she found her body flying through the air as if she had been shot with a slingshot or an arrow. She thought she had been shot, But when she landed on the hot sand, she knew it was her horse that had been shot by the Hambati man. She also saw the captive Arab man had also fallen onto the sand. Olivia quickly managed to get to her feet when she saw a camel rider approaching. Then the stuttering person buzzed and headed towards the captured Janjaweed man. She heard a sound like a thunder and looked up at the sky to see if the storm had arrived. The bound Arab man's screams made her redirect her attention towards him. She saw the huge camel rider flogging the handcuffed Janjaweed man with a very long whip. The captured Arab man began to run back and forth, trying in vain to avoid the blows that hit his body like sword cuts with his bound hands. With every strike, his clothes were torn and his flesh was cracked. Olivia couldn't watch any more as blood covered his face and body. The flogging continued until the captured Janjaweed man fell to the ground. Both Olivia and the betrayer waited for the fallen body to move, but it did not move. Then the rider mounted his large camel and sat on the body of the fallen Arab man. Olivia closed her eyes as she saw the fallen man's body being crushed beneath the massive, huge brute. Tears ran down her cheeks. Would she also be killed in such a brutal manner? Then Olivia covered her face with her hands to hide the tears that began to fall from her beautiful eyes like heavy raindrops. Suddenly she heard a sound similar to the cry of a camel in the desert or an angry elephant in the forest. She stopped crying and revealed her beautiful face just in time to see the Hambati man who had assaulted the captive Arab man walking towards her. He holds an automatic machine gun in his left hand. She had never seen this type of weapon before. He holds a long whip in his right hand. As he approached her, Olivia began to shake and tremble like a reed. The large man uncovered his face and looked at Olivia like a hungry beast would. His eyes are red and evil. Demonic sparks flew from them. His head is as large as watermelon. Olivia had never seen such a giant man before. She wondered how a camel could carry such a heavy weight without breaking its back. Please don't kill me. Please don't kill me. Olivia pleaded for her life as the huge man's shadow blocked the sunlight from her eyes. What Mihera bin Abud had never killed Jamal or the mother of Abusi before. His voice is rough and ugly like that of a ghoul or an ogre. This means that he does not kill a woman with Abusi. It is only with men that what Mihera bin Abud will fight, tremble, and conquer. Olivia shuddered. What happened to Marwan? Why was his arrival delayed? The terrified man asked. What is the name of your tribe? But Mihera roared, and Olivia cleared her dry throat and said, Azandi. The giant stared, a leading smile on his face. The Azandi sure have pretty girls. He uttered those lustful words. His hand reached out to her chest and grasped the golden cross that hung between her spear-like high breasts. In the wilderness, just as a dog assaults its doggy, now she knows that the monster man wants to rape her. At that critical moment, Olivia heard gunfire from deafening bullets. She took a deep breath while still crying and said, This is my hero and my savior, Malwal. Chapter 20. Sudanese slave girl. Immediately, the Hambati with Mihera bin Abud dragged Olivia with him and fell flat on his face. His eyes, like those of a cornered cobra, scanned the area looking for escape. He saw that his men were hit by bullets and they fell off the backs of their camels. From the angle of their fall, he was able to determine the direction from which the bullets were fired. He used his hands and feet to kick the sand. In a fraction of a minute, he created enough dust to hide himself and the captive Azan Digel from the shooter's eyes. Marwal hesitated to shoot at the dust for fear that he would kill his girlfriend instead of the dangerous highway robber. He expected Olivia to pull out her gun and force the Hambati man to surrender. Then the dust settled. Still hidden, Marwal saw what Mihera riding his camel as fast as the wind. He also saw Olivia lying on the back of the huge animal. Marwal was unable to know whether his girlfriend was alive, unconscious, or dead, killed by Wad Mihera. The dangerous Hambati man uses her body as a human shield, an impenetrable barrier to protect himself from the shooter's bullets. He pulled her onto his lap, encircling her with his left hand, which was also holding the camel's rope. Wad Mihera rides his camel and drives it at amazing speed while sitting backward. His right hand shoots at the same time, hold the captive girl, Olivia. His hand holds his machine guns, which showers Marwal's hideout with many bullets. The American groom could not believe his eyes. There is nothing to do but avoid the hail of bullets. He was unable to leave his hiding place until the sound of the machine gun stopped. When Manuel finally crept out of hiding, the first idea that came to his mind was to mount a camel and chase the running away camel. He saw Olivia's horses and the Arab prisoners dead in the sand. His mind rejected the idea when he realized that he had no idea how to make a camel kneel. He needed a ladder to climb onto the back of this dinosaur-like beast. He had to run back to the horse, which he had left half a kilometer away. By the time he got to his horse and began riding back to the battlefield, the escaped camel with his captive lover on its back had disappeared from sight. Night Malwal went in different directions before surrendering. He jumped off his horse, fell to his knees, and began pulling his hair and beating his chest. On that day, he cried for his friend Olivia more than he cried for his lost bride Ayn at the international airport in the United States of America. In that isolated desert of Port Savannah, the beloved Marwal continued to cry over his kidnapped lover Olivia for a very long time. He blamed himself for gambling away the precious soul of the beautiful Azandi girl. He also condemned himself for arriving at the place where Olivia faces the evil Arabs of the Habata too late. Why did he agree to let her ride and walk in front of him? Why didn't he take the lead and ask her to follow behind? Why did he walk from the place where he left his horse to the place where the Hambata assaulted Olivia and the captive Arab man? These questions and many more have been bothering Marwal's troubled conscience for a long time. He held himself responsible for what happened to Olivia. He did not know how deep his love for her was until he lost her. Over the course of the year they spent together in the forest, she became everything to him. Therefore, he decided to dig the earth and return his companion, whether she was alive or dead, captive at large, free, or enslaved. Malwal had no choice but to continue his journey alone to the city of Al-Fashir. He rode his horse all night and half the next day before entering the city. It was the loneliest and saddest time of his entire life. For the first time, he felt the void that Olivia's absence created in his heart. It is as if he never fell in love with a woman before he met her. He loves Olivia for her beauty, courage, and willingness to sacrifice her life for the married man she loves. She never wavered in her love, even though she knew that the groom Malwal might leave her when he found his missing bride Ayen. She does not suffer from the loss of her Arab lover, the Muslim soldier whom she eventually lost in the south when he was killed by the rebels, but she only wants her African lover, Malwal, to get what he lost, his dear Denka bride Ayen. His tears are his constant companion on his journey as as a defeated soldier who lost the most precious friend in his life, especially when he imagined what the evil man might do to her, including brutal rape and internal sex slavery. Before entering the outskirts of the city, Malwal get rid of his horse. He expected that the Islamic police would accuse him of killing someone and stealing his horse. Additionally, he may be arrested for carrying firearms within the city, so he hid his big gun before entering the city. He kept one small pistol hidden inside his clothes. He has some money with him. First, he must look for a hotel to rent and a small room. When the American groom entered the city, he saw a man from South Sudan. So he went to him. The man is limping, barbaric, and appears to be in his late 60s. He reminded him of the kind old African man he met as soon as he crossed the Kenya-Sudanese border and spent the night with him in his dilapidated hut. Peace, uncle, Malwal said in the Denka language. The man replied, smiling when he heard Malwal speaking his language. Peace, my son, O Banjos. I'm a stranger and I am looking for a place to rent. Malwal continued walking as he spoke. The Denka man turned and inspected him from head to toe. Are you looking for a cheap hotel? Malwal nodded and said, how much do they charge per night at this hotel? The man smiled. He laughed again and replied, I work as a sweeper, cook, and waiter in that cheap hotel called the African Laconda. I will tell the manager to charge you a reasonable rate. Thank you, my dear uncle. Come with me, sweet young Banjos. The paralyzed man limped a little faster. Malwal has to slow his steps to accommodate the disabled man's pace. Then the man continued the conversation enthusiastically. Why did you come to this small town? Why didn't you go to the capital city of Sudan? Khartoum is a big city and has many opportunities for young men like you. He waved his withered hand in the air like the staff of the prophet Moses or the magic carpet of wind of Aladdin that was about to fly by and land in the triangular capital city of Sudan. If you don't want to work in Khartoum city, you can find a young, strong Denka woman working for you. He laughed, leaned closer to Mulwal, winked suggestively, and whispered, you just have to do your sexual duty on the bed at night. The groom Mulwal was upset by the crippled man's immoral advice. He saw how the old geezer unfairly described a woman's love for a man. He believed that women only love sex and nothing else. He remembered his love for the kidnapped girl Olivia and had great sacrifices for him. How can anyone believed that every woman only wants to have sex with a man. Malwal did not have sex with Olivia, but her love for him transcended any physical relationship. The beautiful and sexy Adandi girl asked nothing sexual from him except to stand by his side so that he could find his missing Denka pride, one of the beautiful captured Denka woman, Ayen. Malwal thought about telling the crippled man about his platonic friendship with Olivia, but hesitated. The old man might not believe him if he told him that he had spent more than a year with a beautiful young Azandi girl who was half naked in the forest without having sex with her even once. Then the sad lover said, I came to this city to search for my two sisters who were kidnapped by the Arab Janjaweed. One of them is called Ayn and the other is known as Olivia. The disabled old man stopped in his tracks and pulled Malwal towards him. He looked in all directions before whispering in the ear of his new Denka friend. Yes, the Arabs go to the Bahar al-Ghazal province every year and steal our Denka girls and our livestock. They bring them to this place to sell livestock and force our girls to work in their homes and fields as slaves without paying them wages. Then the old man wrinkled his nose and spat on the ground in disgust. This evil practice of the Arab invaders will soon become a thing of the past. What happened recently in this place has made good people like you and me turn this city upside down. Malwar raised his eyebrows, but when he opened his mouth to reply, the old man waved his hand impatiently and continued, Yes, we destroyed half of this city because of the accident. Imagine, my good son, that the Khartoum government denies slavery in Sudan, and yet Maulana Abdul Razik Al-Mahdi, the imam of the largest mosque in Al-Fashir city, raped one of our Denka girls, impregnated her without marrying her, and fathered an illegitimate daughter by her. When they brought him to the Sharia court, he said that she was his Jariya girl. The old man stuck out his chest, lowered his voice, imitating the imam when he spoke in court. Malwal frowned in confusion. He asked calmly, What is a Jariya girl? The paralyzed man's eyes widened. He stared at Malwal with his mouth open. Do you not understand the Arabic language? He shook his head and made a clicking sound with his mouth. Before the Dinka boy spoke, the old man spoke and answered his question. Jariya girl means an unpaid sex slave with whom a man can have sex by inserting his penis into her vagina and fucking her, and then making her pregnant without marrying her. What did the court do to him? Marwal moved closer, trying to hear more clearly. The Southern man crossed his arms before answering, Nothing. Marwal couldn't believe his ears. He spoke with conviction, his voice angry and a little louder than he intended. That means the Islamic Sharia court allows slavery in this city. The old man raised his hand, stepped back, and shouted angrily, Impossible. As long as there are good people like you and me, the Sudanese court, whether religious or secular, cannot allow slavery again in this free country. Marwal pointed to the crippled man and said, This most likely means that good people like you and me forces the imam of the biggest mosque to release the Denka slave girl who was impregnated with an illegitimate daughter by him. At this, the old man hung his head in sadness. There he replied in a soft voice, Not yet. The pregnant Denka girl who gave birth to a bint haram, or an illegitimate daughter, still serves in the imam's house as unpaid sex slave. Then his face brightened and he continued, Sooner or later, the criminal court will force the evil imam to release the enslaved Denka girl so that she can become free again. The mayor of this city is a good man like you and me. He promised the public that the adulterous imam would be referred to the Al-Fashir criminal court very soon. An idea occurred to Marwan. By the way, what is the name of that enslaved Denka girl? The old man was silent for a moment. His bro frowned in thought. Then suddenly remembered her name and shouted, "Ikhlas!" How old is she? The American boy had asked it out of courtesy and nothing more. The old black eyes examined the face of the handsome young Malwal. Then he replied, "She is not less than your age, my son." "How long has she been living in the Imam's house as a slave girl?" Malwal was more curious now. A Denke girl his age is someone's slave. It is hard to believe. The old man shrugged his shoulders. "I hear some people say about 10 years. Imagine, my son, that one of our Denke girls has been living for 10 years under slavery and sexual abuse. How she must have suffered in this house of bondage. Have you never seen her, good uncle?" The sad American groom is now tired, both from the sadness of the story and from the terrible weirdness of the day's events, especially his beloved kidnapped friend, the sweet Azandi girl Olivia. He also silently asked himself how far he could walk to reach the hotel. No one has ever seen her son except the neighbors. The old man shook his head in time with his staggering step. "She is probably in chains most of the time." Marwal stopped and said in complete astonishment, "In chains?" The old man's eyes filed up. He sniffed and wiped his nose on his shirt sleeve. "Yes, she is in chains, my son. This is what the Arabs did to our African people in the past. This is written in the school books of Sudanese history about the Arab slave trader Zubair Basha wa Rahama and his soldiers, the Bazbuzu. They invaded the cities of the Denka, For, and Nuba, chained black African men and women, and beat them every day and every night. They raped women and castrated men. Then they sold them in slave markets in Arab and European countries, just as sheep were sold. I don't think much has changed today with the Arab Janjaweed." This was too much for the American groom Marwal. The last information brought tears to his eyes. He imagined his beloved friend Olivia and his lost bride Ayen in chains. Tears blurred his vision so badly that he almost collided with the disabled old man a few moments later when he stopped right in front of him. The old man patted Marwal on the shoulder in a comforting gesture. He pointed to a low door nearby and said, "Here we are, son. We arrived at the hotel known as the African Laconda in Al-Fashir city." Chapter 21. The high-ranking Bim lady, Bint Zubair Basha. Zubair Basha was the most vile person to walk the face of the earth. He was a Sudanese traitor and slave trader who lived in Sudan a century ago. He had slave plantations and trained soldiers. His soldiers were called Bazbuzuk, which means "we do not obey anyone but you." Their obedience to their leader, the evil slave trader Zubair Basha, exceeded the obedience of the Nazi German army soldiers to the tyrant Adolf Hitler. That slave trader was the only Sudanese man to receive the honorable title of Basha. Only the great Turkish sultans such as Muhammad Ali Basha, his son Ismail Basha, and a few other important figures received this honorable title. The reason why such an evil person has such an honorable title in the history of Sudan is not as worrying as the fact that his evil practice was passed from generation to generation until the Arab Janjaweed inherited it. In his days, Azbir Basha, with his army, Bazbuzu, raided the cities and villages of southern Sudan, the western Darfur region, and the Nuba Mountains in the center of the country to obtain African slaves. He would bring these captive men and slave women to the western region of Sudan and keep them in barns, just as one raises animals on private slave farms to tame them. During their stay on these farms or barns, the Boer Southerners, Force, and Nuba people were subjected to torture that was beyond description. Men were castrated and turned into impotent eunuchs, and women were regularly beaten and gang raped by Bazbuzuk soldiers. When Zubair Basha was sure that those poor people have been transformed from ordinary human beings into tortured slaves, he would ship them to global slave markets in North and East Africa, the Arabian Peninsula, Europe, or the two American continents. The largest slave market was in Zanzibar in Kenya today, and from here, Africans are called Zunuj or Negroes to this day. A fair brand was used to mark their bodies just like products before they were shipped abroad to slave markets. Even when the British officially abolished slavery in Sudan, Azbir Basha continued to practice it for a very long time. The British forces faced heavy resistance from the Bazbuzuk soldiers of Azbir Basha. A century later, what Azbir Basha did was just a memory of the past, but the evil practice continues in disguise to this day in Sudan. Surprisingly, Azbir Basha is today considered one of the great heroes of Sudanese history. Also, today, one of the famous streets in the capital of Sudan, Khartoum, was named after that evil man, Azbir Basha Street. And this, to the black African Sudanese, is worse than naming a road in German capital city, Berlin, Adolf Hitler Street. Anyway, a Sudanese woman claiming to be a descendant of Azbir Basha had a dream one night. In her dream, she saw her great-grandfather, Azbir Basha with Rahama. He spoke to her, gave her his karama or a charisma, and ordered her to continue the lucrative slavery trade of impure, maniacal Africans. He reminded her that Islam has not abolished slavery to this day. He said that there is a major branch of study at Al-Ashar Sharif University in Egypt called the jurisprudence of slavery. He reminded her that the slavery trade was forbidden by the infidel Christian Europeans and by the United Nations, who follow the laws of the Charter of Human Rights that were created by the atheist Western men and were not a divine revelation like the verses of the Holy Quran and the hadiths of the Prophet's Sunnah that permit the slave trade and the possession of the right hand possession Jawari, who are female slaves. After that, the woman decided to revive the slave trade of her great-grandfather, the brave Arab Sudanese hero Azbir Basha. His grandfather is Al-Abbas, the uncle of the Prophet Muhammad. Before she saw the vision, the daughter of Azbir Basha was working as a Faddadiyya, which means she was a beam lady in a brothel house. She herself was not a prostitute because it would be a shame for such a noble Sudanese Arab woman to do such a vile practice. She is from the Shagir tribe, some of whom claim that The Prophet Muhammad was their grandfather. She owns about 50 prostitutes. These prostitutes came from different tribes in Sudan. In these brothels and taverns owned by the daughter of Zubair Basha, one can find all shades of skin, from dark ebony to light ivory. After she had her dream, Zubair Basha's daughter began trading not only in women's bodies, but in their souls as well. As word spread, other people began to take advantage of the new trade. Hence, the slave trade was revived by one Arab woman. Within a few years, her only brothel expanded, multiplied, branched out, and became as ubiquitous as the threads of a spider's web. The Janjaweed Muslim invaders and Hambata highway robbers began exchanging captured women with Bint Zubair Basha for money. She does not accept stolen livestock or a captive man, but only trades cash for beautiful captive young women and underage girls. If the girl is still a virgin, her price will be double. She uses her finger to find out if the girl has a virgin pussy or not. Al-Hambata, the contemporary brave Sudanese hero, what Meher bin Aboud became a regular resources for this woman. He sold the two kidnapped African girls, Ayane and Olivia, to her. But not every girl who ended up in that woman's brothel was sold. Some girls, especially young Arab women, sold themselves to her. These girls had either become pregnant before marriage as a result of adultery, rape, or incest, or had been caught red-handed committing forbidden relationship with their lovers. In each case, they either had to surrender themselves to their fathers or brothers to be slain in honor killings for bringing shame to their families, or flee their homes and become prostitutes. If a girl comes to the brothel of her own free will, she will be blessed either in prostitution or in homemade liquor trade. Making, selling, and drinking alcohol is forbidden throughout Sudan because it is a Muslim country. As soon as she enters that brothel house, society describes her as a fallen woman. Later, even if that girl visited the holy house of God in Mecca, the holy city of Jerusalem in Israel, or the Vatican in Rome, or washed her body in the holy waters of the Ganges, Jamna in the city of Banaras in India, or repented and became a nun, this mark of shame will never be erased. It is like a permanent henna tattoo, or the 666 mark of the beast that people can see etched on her face wherever she goes. This sign of shame is evident in the way she walks, talks, dresses, and acts. Quite simply, she will be a girl free of shame, who will not care about any moral standards of our society, and she can sleep with the devil if he wants to have sex with her and pays her the required price, which is the rate of her pussy for forbidden sex.